Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Very excited to continue our NBA draft coverage here on the channel, and this video is pre-recorded because today is actually my fiance's birthday. Let's get some birthday wishes for her down in the comment section right now. Really appreciate each of you for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. And in today's draft video, we're going to focus on potential sleepers and stars in the 2025 NBA draft. I think it will be a very fun video as we discuss players who could be real headliners in the 2025 draft. Cooper, Flagg, Harper, to name a couple. And then we're also going to look at a variety of other players as well. So in the video preview here, not only are we going to look at players who have what I would deem attainable superstar potential, so not just guys who are significant upside players, but players who I think can very realistically live up to that superstar potential. We're going to talk about them at the end of this video, but before that, we're going to get to some risers and sleepers. We're going to talk about guys who have really been elevating their draft stock early in the college basketball season. Now remember, I have recorded this one in advance about a week early, so with that in mind, if an injury does occur, obviously knock on wood, hope all of these players stay healthy, that might change how we talk about some of these prospects. But all in all, at the time I'm recording this, these are players who are risers and sleepers that have really stood out to me from the early stages of the college basketball season specifically. And riser number one I want to talk about is Derik for the Maryland Terrapins. He has been nothing short of stellar as a true freshman. And you think about his journey to college basketball, specifically being the starting big man next to Cooper, Flagg, and Leah McNeely, and a very talented Montverde Academy roster. Last year in high school, the best high school team in the nation. I think many would agree with that statement. Last year, Derik was an awesome player for them and starred in a variety of different roles, but specifically exerted a ton of rim pressure in high school. And at Maryland has kind of been given the keys to expand his game and really truly showcase his talent. I think we've seen a lot of tremendous positives that is beginning to make him look like a true first round, maybe even a lottery pick. He was featured in my last NBA mock draft up on the channel. Make sure to go check that out after this video if you haven't already. He has an impressive inside-out game, and I think what truly flashes for me, not only the willingness to shoot, but when we talk about stretch big men, players who are able to play away from the hoop, I think one of the most underrated elements for a stretch big is the ability to actually handle the basketball, make plays with a dribble. Not typically what you think of when you hear stretch big. You obviously think about the floor spacing, the three-point shooting element, the ability to step out to 17 plus feet, knock down mid-range jump shots, knock down three-point jump shots. Derik can do those things and I think is growing in those areas, but the one thing that really stands out to me every time I watch him is how comfortable he is and how fluid he is with the basketball in his hands. I compared him in the past to Montrezl Harrell, a player who in the NBA really dominated as a face-up big man, something we don't really see very often, very frequently, but Montrezl Harrell won a Sixth Man of the Year award that way and was a real bucket getter in the late 2010s and the early 2020s as a go-to half-court offensive force, and I think Derik has a little bit of that in his game. Now, Trez's career didn't really last extremely long in the NBA, unfortunately, now playing in the NBL, but I do think Montrezl Harrell is a good early-stage comparison, but I think one thing Derik has a little bit more of that we didn't get to see a ton from Montrezl Harrell is the ability to actually step out, knock down perimeter jump shots pretty reliably. In some ways, I've compared him to Jalen Smith in that regard too. So I think there's some real positives here to work with for Derik. And the other thing I want to highlight too in his game, the tenacity that he plays with. His very first college game ever, he put up a 20-20 performance, 20 rebounds, over 20 points in that one as well. His ability to get on the glass and I think specifically follow up his own misses has been tremendous and very remarkable. If you think about a points per possession basis, which is one of the most important stats analytic measurements we have in the NBA right now, his ability to clean up the offensive glass, really put back his own misses. I'm not saying Derik is like Zion Williamson, but what I'm saying is Derik ability to follow up his own misses, put his own shots back up again for a second, maybe even a third time on occasion. That makes him a more efficient half-court offensive player. Even though that doesn't show up in the field goal percentage area, it does show up in the points per possession category. So keep that in mind as well when you're looking at Derik as an efficiency type player moving forward into NBA projections past this first college season of his. Another big-time riser has been Jeremiah Fears of Oklahoma, and he is not a player who was featured in my most recent NBA mock draft. And unsurprisingly, there were a lot of comments asking about Jeremiah Fears. Where is he? Why is he not in this first-round mock? First of all, let's start with the strengths. What do I really like about Jeremiah Fears? He has an impressive handle and burst. He has real shot creation upside as a guard. He's comfortable handling the basketball. And for Oklahoma right now, his usage is extremely high. They really rely on him to create a pretty decent majority of their offense. And I think a lot of the positives we see from a skill set really stand out. But he is still extremely young. He just turned 18 years old. He is going to be one of the younger NBA draft prospects in the 2025 NBA draft, which leads me to believe that for a player like Jeremiah Fears, who has so much on-ball talent, so much on-ball skill, Fears might be best suited to follow the precedent of some other highly talented guards who transitioned extremely well from college basketball to the NBA. You think about someone like Ja Morant, who spent 2 years at Murray State. You think about James Harden, who spent 2 years at Arizona State. You think about Tyrese Halliburton, who spent 2 years at Iowa State. Could it be long-term beneficial for Jeremiah Fears to spend a second season at Oklahoma? And even though a lot of people are believing in the buzz, and I do too, I think there's a lot of tools, a lot of traits to work with here. I think Jeremiah Fears, if he spent a second year at college basketball, especially given his age, how young he is, he could be suited for a really dominant sophomore season for the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, there is a lot of this season to go yet, so maybe he just continues to blossom and grow as a player. Maybe we see that efficiency tick up a little bit right now. At the time I'm recording it, he hasn't been the most efficient half-court offensive player. So I'm kind of optimistic on a long-term potential for him. And I think if he spent one extra season in college basketball, it would be highly beneficial for his not only draft stock going into the 2026 NBA draft, but also just flat out for who he can be as a player long-term, getting that extra developmental year in college compared to having to maybe risk not playing as much as a rookie in the NBA next season. I think it would be a big-time benefit for him long-term to strongly consider a second collegiate season, even though he's had a pretty impressive freshman season for the Sooners this year. When it comes to sleeper number one, this is a player who will probably be a second-round draft pick, but I think should be on the first-round radar for a variety of different teams, and that is Koby Brea from Kentucky. And I am a Dayton Flyers fan, and if you watched any Dayton Flyers basketball last year, Koby Brea was a name you could just not ignore. Around Dayron Holmes, the second first-round pick of the Denver Nuggets, unfortunately, Holmes tore his Achilles. But with Dayton not only losing Dayron Holmes to the NBA draft, but Koby Brea to Kentucky in the portal, it has completely drastically reshaped their team, and I think Kentucky specifically has reaped significant benefits with Koby Brea on their roster. He is an absolute flamethrower from three, one of the best shooters in all of college basketball right now, whether you count upperclassmen, true freshmen, whatever you want to count. He is one of the 5-10 best shooters in the nation right now. His ability to shoot the ball, and he does it out of a variety of different set actions. He can function as a spot-up, stand-still, catch-and-shoot guy. He's very accustomed to working with Dayron Holmes in dribble handoffs out in the perimeter. He's comfortable working off of movement, off of floppy action, off of staggered screens, off of wide pin downs. He is such a talented shooter, and with the way the NBA game has evolved and revolutionized and changed, having a sniper like Koby Brea who has solid positional size, solid athletic traits, and real college basketball experience across multiple different systems and has found success in all of those systems, Koby Brea is the type of player who I think is a super easy transition to the NBA. And I think with Koby Brea likely being a second round pick, he will be a huge steal on draft night in 2025. For whatever team drafts him, they're going to get a highly functional movement shooter who can fit in immediately on day one of his NBA career. Looking at sleeper number two, this one is Adou Thiero from Arkansas, former Kentucky Wildcat, funny enough, and he's got a man's game. He's got big, broad shoulders. He's extremely strong. You can tell he lives in the weight room, and it shows up on film as well, and that's, I think, one of the most important things I watch for when I'm evaluating college prospects and NBA draft prospects in general. How athletic is this guy functionally? And it's not just about, okay, 1-on-0, what kind of flashy dunk can he throw down? Is it a windmill dunk, a tomahawk? That doesn't really matter to me. 2 points are 2 points. What I think does really stand out to me, though, for someone like Thiero specifically, his ability to convert in traffic, play around other physicality, play into traffic, play into contact, and his ability to kind of rise above defenders as well. And I think that's where you look at Thiero, who is a pretty good 1-foot leaper, but a very strong 2-foot jumper. And I think that specifically, the ability to jump both off of 1 and 2 feet in and around traffic, gives him extra functionality in the NBA when, you know, space gets a little bit tighter, when help defense becomes a little bit better, when there's more 7 feet guys at the rim to kind of protect the rack. His ability to play off of 2 feet, play into traffic, go into the chest of a shot blocker, and score in those ways, that's what really stands out to me for Adou Thiero, someone who I think can stand out in a big way in the NBA. And then defensively as well, he offers a lot of scheme versatility. He can be a very good nail help guy. He can be a strong on-ball defender. I think his screen navigation has a bit of a ways to go yet, but there's been a lot of positive traits we've seen so far as well. So I think for Thiero specifically, if you look at who he is as a prospect, who he is as a player, in the growth between last year to this year as a college basketball player, the sky's the limit. You know, the physical comparison for me kind of reminds me a little bit of OG Anunoby. Now, I don't think he's going to be as good of an NBA player as Anunoby is, but I think Thiero right now, wherever you see him mocked, wherever you see him kind of projected in the NBA draft, it's probably not high enough. I think he's going to be a good NBA player, and I'm extremely optimistic about this kid's future moving forward. Now to the part of the video everyone has been anticipating, and it is about the first overall pick. And right now there are 2 names who are really fighting and in contention for that first overall pick. Dylan Harper, point guard of the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, and Cooper Flagg, hybrid forward for the Duke Blue Devils. And I think this is such an interesting debate for the first overall pick. Coming into the year, I did anticipate Cooper Flagg being the first overall selection. However, the extremely strong play of Dylan Harper has been very reminiscent of a player we've already talked about in this video, Arizona State, James Harden. James Harden spent 2 years at Arizona State, but Rutgers, Dylan Harper has been on another level, very comparable to those 2 seasons James Harden had with the Sun Devils over a decade and a half ago now. Dylan Harper, such an impressive prospect when you look at his overall body of work and specifically some of the advanced stats looking at. You compare his usage rate, you compare the effective, you compare his true shooting percentage, you compare his win shares per 40. Everything has been extremely impressive for Dylan Harper early in his returns for Rutgers, and he's scoring the ball at a very high clip. I think obviously there are areas of growth for him still as a 3-point shooter transitioning to the NBA, but he is kind of what your traditional standard star player would look like. A high volume, high ball usage player who's going to have the ball in his hands. You're going to put shooting around him. You're going to surround him with a pick and roll lob threat probably, or a pick and pop game. Dylan Harper is going to be that dynamic on-ball creator, very similar to other former first overall picks we've seen, like a Cade Cunningham. You think about former 3rd overall picks, James Harden, Luka Doncic. Dylan Harper is a bigger playmaker, standing around 6'5", 6'6" with shoes on probably. He's an impressive athlete. He's got, I think, a very deceptive quick first step, and the ball handling skills and tools are all there for him to be a lead guard in the NBA. And then Cooper Flagg is kind of the opposite. He's not your typical superstar 1A player where, yes, you just give him the ball and everyone get out of the way. I think Cooper Flagg is a multifaceted star and a player who is going to show up in more ways than one. You'll see it across the box score, and you'll really feel his impact throughout the course of games when you actually watch him play. And I think shifting him into the NBA is going to be even more apparent for some of his obvious greatness and strengths too. I've been comparing him to a perimeter version of Anthony Davis for some time now, and I think, you know, in some ways where we saw Anthony Davis fall short as a 1A player for, say, the New Orleans Pelicans early in his career, I think Cooper Flagg might face some of those same difficulties if a team tries to rely on him as a 1A player, because he's not going to be the best half-court shot creator in the NBA. He's not going to be the best playmaker in the NBA. But what he is a wide-ranged, versatile player who, you need him to create a shot, he can do that. You need him to handle the ball in the pick and roll, he can do that. You want him to be the screener in the pick and roll, he can definitely do that. You want him to operate at the dunker spot, he can do that. He's going to be an awesome transition offensive player. Oh, and by the way, he's one of the more versatile defensive players we have seen in recent history. Someone who I think can really function as a weak side shot blocker. You know, he cannot guard 1 through 5. In fact, right now I would say I'm most comfortable with him guarding 2 through 4. in the NBA, but I think with the versatility specifically in his athletic traits, it allows you to position your own center in a variety of different ways. Do you want to blitz ball screens more? Cooper Flagg can be a very good low man for a team if you use him that way. He can also at times probably match up onto the 5 so that you can play ball screens more aggressive and have your center himself rotate in, something that we've seen a lot of NBA teams do, specifically the Boston Celtics in the 2024 NBA Finals. Cooper Flagg gives you a lot of scheme versatility defensively, and he plays with a real tenacity as well. We talked about that with Derik Queen. I think a lot of those Montverde Academy guys had that tenacity kind of built up into the way that they play the game of basketball. Cooper Flagg, you see that night in, night out with his work ethic, the way that he applies himself on both ends of the floor. He is a two-way star in the making. So it's a really interesting dynamic here between a lead guard on-ball creator in Dylan Harper compared to a player who probably functions best as a 1B type option offensively for you, maybe even a 2A type option, but fills up a ton of other areas for your team as a versatile player who can fit into almost any kind of system and is going to be a huge gap filler for a lot of teams who have pretty significant flaws in their roster. So you think about some of the landing spots, Washington, Utah, some of the other teams around the top as well, like New Orleans. There's a wide variety of places where these kids could obviously land. And I think depending on which team gets the first overall pick, it will really dictate which way they ultimately go on draft night, because these are two awesome prospects and two prospects who I think are very deserving of the number 1 overall pick discussion at the current point in time when I'm recording this. I really hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell as well. And then comment down below, who do you think should be the number 1 pick? I think it's a real toss-up at the time I'm recording this between Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper. Coming into the year, I would have given Flagg the significant edge, but I think the early returns, the early play of Dylan Harper has been so awesome, so undeniable that he has entered that conversation and will likely stay in the conversation until the end of the college basketball season at the very least. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Thanks again so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.